Order. First order of business is us to review the minutes of the March 28th, 2024 meeting. I believe Dominic had emailed those to the members. If folks want to take a look at those and the motion to approve. Great, second by Steve, motion by Mr. Conley. Any discussion? All those in favor? Great, motion is approved for the minutes. New business is a public hearing on the Metacomet Property LLC application for its proposed development located at 500 Veterans Memorial Parkway. Before we open the public hearing, I just want to make mention to folks who were on the Waterfront Commission who weren't part of last week's design review committee. It was chaired by Mr. Amoroso, who did a very good job conducting the hearing. About 3.5 hours of testimony, and I thought it was a very worthwhile discussion. A lot of the issues raised at the design review committee obviously dealt with the design guidelines, traffic, setbacks, things of that nature, landscaping, and so on. So I know that that there was no action at that meeting from last week. That meeting is there's going to be another meeting of the design review scheduled sometime in May. Continue aspects on that process. So at this point, I'll ask the applicant if he has any, the applicant has any issues that they would like to present tonight that are in addition to what was discussed last week.
Thank you, Mr. Fazioli. As the commission knows, I'm Josh Berlinski. I'm with the firm of Darrow Everett LLP, and I represent the applicant. We have a very brief presentation tonight. Really what we're going to do is Matt Merva from Bowler Engineering is going to summarize some of the developments as a result of design review, which, as Mr. Fazioli mentioned, we thought was an incredibly productive and substantive dialogue, and we thank everyone that attended for their time. It was long overdue in our estimation, and we thought it was well worth the wait. So, and then following Mr. Merva's summary, I have a few statements, and that'll conclude our pitch for tonight. This is kind of an interim meeting for us, and I'll explain further in just as soon as Matt finishes. So without further ado, Mr. Merva.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Fazioli, members of the commission. Good to see everybody tonight. Just wanted to summarize some of the highlights from our meeting last week, as Josh mentioned, and Mr. Amoroso was there, as well as Mr. Fontecchio, so you're welcome to chime in as well. But some good dialogue and some things that we took away that we're going to be working on as we continue through the process here. We started kind of focusing on Parkway character. That was the focus of the initial discussion. We talked about the roundabout design. We had our traffic consultant there, Paul Bannon, to discuss the process of working with RIDOT and nailing down the design for that roundabout. So that is evolving. We're in the process of working through those design features, but some focus on how we're going to connect to the bike path at that roundabout location, and had some good dialogue around that. And walkways and connectivity in general was discussed quite a bit. We said we'd explore the possibility of widening the pathway that we're showing in the 100-foot buffer along Veterans Memorial to accommodate cyclists. So that's something that we're looking at right now. We talked about the entry off of Lion Ave into the site and looking at the formality of that. Is there a way to change that a little bit to free up some green space by moving some parking along the sort of east-west boulevard within our site to try to get some additional green in there, and that's something we're going to explore as well. We do have renderings that show the pedestrian access down towards the pond along that 100-foot frontage. We shared those at the meeting, but those will be available in future meetings as well to highlight that area further. In terms of landscape and lighting, Mr. Fazioli touched on it. We talked about looking at additional screening for the loading area adjacent to the grocery store along Lion Ave. So that's something we're exploring as well. We talked lighting a bit. We did provide cut sheets of the lighting and photometric plans in our submission package, but we also said that we'd come back with images of what the light fixtures, the site light fixtures look like so that people get a sense of the character and look and feel of what we're proposing there versus just sort of a stock cut sheet. So we'll provide that as well. We were asked to just make sure the plant material we're utilizing is from the city-approved list, which we have confirmed. And we will be providing more detail on that as we move forward. Looking at materials throughout the site in terms of paving. We'll bring more imagery and samples of what those unit pavers are going to look like to the next meeting as well. We talked about the use of stamped bituminous concrete to make sure that that specification is robust. I understand there have been areas in the city where that hasn't worked great, so we'll make sure that we're addressing that in the design. In terms of the layout, we clarified a couple things. One of the design guidelines talks about the curb cut widths that are the maximum allowed in the plan being 20 feet. We discussed that, we clarified, I think, that that is really intended to be individual residential driveways are limited to 20 feet or less. So we should have no trouble complying with that. We also said we'd look at specific locations for EV parking spaces and make sure those are notated on the plan. From an architectural standpoint, we discussed the screening of rooftop units, if there are going to be those on, that they are not visible from the ground. So we are looking at that. I believe a lot of the elevations do show that within the package that was submitted, but we'll make sure that that is the case. And then screening at the ground level for transformers, just making sure that's coordinated with the utility companies so that we're not violating any of their procedures and needs for access. Location of gas meters on buildings, making sure that's sensitive to what the visual impacts are going to be. Screening of dumpsters and trash enclosures. We talked about the breaking up of the garage units that face onto our boulevard. That was something noted by Glenn and Sarah. We said we'd take a look at maybe breaking up the architecture of that so that it isn't so linear and singular there. So that's something we'll be looking at as well. And then we discussed bringing physical samples in of some of the building materials from the planking to the shingles. And we discussed maybe using some of the darker colors more for accents and not for making the buildings feel heavy. And I know John Selly was taking note of that at the last meeting as well. So I know that's not a comprehensive list of everything, but just wanted to give you a sense for what we're going to be working on as we approach the next meeting.
Thank you. Glenn and Steve, do you have anything to add? Is that, yeah?
So we were just discussing between ourselves a couple of points. So we think you covered it very well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Turn it back over to Josh.
Thank you, Matt. I regret we don't have a longer presentation tonight, but we finally have climate control in the council chambers. If we can just maintain this for the next few meetings, that would be outstanding. Earlier today, the applicant submitted a supplemental plan set to the Waterfront Commission to their offices in their planning. And we are not going to discuss that submission today. I've coordinated with the planning department. It will be available online first thing tomorrow. The subject matter of this supplemental plan sheets, I think there's 5 or 6 in total, has to do with the golf course. And there's been a lot of discussion about the golf course over the last couple months. We were fairly transparent in our intentions with regard to that golf course at the onset of this process. So we don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse. So we're not looking to engage in a substantive conversation. We don't want to ambush you with what you haven't seen before or had an opportunity to digest, nor does the public. They deserve a right to review it as well. So I thought what I might do with your permission is just read the narrative that accompanied the submission, just to kind of set the stage for the next month's proceedings. And we'll be looking to appear before design review in addition to the normal course to discuss the updates, to discuss the golf course in greater detail. We'll be looking to go back to planning, to obtain a recommendation that the proposed golf course, which is really the continuation of the golf course, complies with the comprehensive plan, and then ultimately back to Waterfront for an approval of the phase allocated specifically to the golf course. So I'm just going to read what we submitted, and then that's it. And then you guys have any thoughts as to what you might like to have us present next month, or questions or concepts? We're more than willing to listen. We're not going anywhere, but just really set the stage to what's to come in the next few meetings. So here's what the narrative read. To the honorable members of the Waterfront Commission, as you know, Metacomet Property LLC, an affiliate of Marshall Development, submitted an application to this commission in December 2023, in which applicant proposed a dynamic mixed-use development at the site of the former Metacomet Golf Course. The proposal seeks to create desperately needed housing for renters and buyers alike in the greater Providence market, while also providing additional commercial space designed to address specific and identified needs for both the community within the proposed development and East Providence as a whole. At the same time, it is projected that the project will generate millions in new tax revenue for both the city and the state. Pursuant to Section 19470 of the Waterfront Special Development District Ordinance, the purpose of waterfront development is to provide for appropriate mixed-use development while protecting the important scenic and recreational resources along the East Providence waterfront. As we have consistently demonstrated in multiple hearings to date, the proposed development advances land use policies and design practices that respect and enhance the uniqueness of both built and natural environments. As we wrote in our narrative accompanying the application, amenities include a proposed promenade for pedestrian traffic, an outdoor amphitheater, and perhaps most significantly, the applicant has spent a portion of 2023 restoring a portion of the property in furtherance of its plan to unveil and open a 9-hole public golf course in the summer of 2024. We are happy to report that the applicant still intends to open the golf course to the public this summer. Significant time and expense has been applied over the past 12 months in order to make this plan a reality. The applicant is mindful, however, of the fact that both the applicant and the commission have much work remaining relative to certain elements of the project. After some delays, we finally held our first design review committee hearing on the application the week of April 8th, receiving substantive and productive feedback on the project. Meanwhile, numerous impact studies commissioned by the applicant are undergoing peer review, and we await those results. Virtually all of these studies apply to proposed improvements to the property independent of the golf course. As summer and golf season approaches, we write today to propose an approach that will allow residents to use and benefit from the proposed golf course this year. As we all know, the property was formerly used as a golf course, the use is allowed as of right, and the dedication of this portion of the property for this exact purpose was mandated by the City Council in the 2021 zoning change. The applicant has developed a strategy, as laid out on the plans accompanying this narrative, to open and operate this popular, much sought-after amenity while the commission continues to consider the balance of the project. Again, as we wrote in our December 2023 narrative, other than the golf course, which is anticipated to open to the public in June 2024, subject to receipt of the requisite approvals, the improved portion of the development is intended to be constructed in 2 separate phases, as more particularly set forth in the engineering submission of the application. We attached to this narrative an amended phasing plan, which identifies the golf course as Phase 1. The appurtenant equipment and maintenance building becomes Phase 1A, with an estimated construction time of fall/winter 2024, following the conclusion of this year's golf season. The proposed improvements, formerly known as Phase 1 and Phase 2, will now be known as Phases 2 and 3, respectively. We have also included plans which demonstrate how the public golf course is intended to operate while permitting on the balance of the project proceeds, as well as the layout of the 9 holes. The applicant will be providing testimony in due course regarding all of these components, addressing the concerns of the city, this commission, and members of the public as it relates to the golf course in a comprehensive and coherent fashion. Therefore, the applicant respectfully requests at this time that the commission consider a bifurcated approval for Phase 1 of the project, a 9-hole public golf course at its earliest convenience. In furtherance thereof, we will be seeking a recommendation from the East Providence Planning Board as to the consistency of said Phase 1 with the comprehensive plan for the city of East Providence, and we look forward to our presentation on this component at May's Design Review Committee and subsequent Waterfront Commission hearing. The last few months have been a difficult time for residents of the city of East Providence, as infrastructure failures have made everyday life more challenging in several ways. The applicant is hopeful and optimistic that our proposal will provide both physical and emotional benefits and have a positive impact on our neighbors in a moment in time where it would be greatly. That is the document that will be publicly available first thing tomorrow morning on the website. There will be a plan set publicly available as well. We want to give everyone the opportunity to digest what we've submitted. We think it's an ideal scenario, and we're optimistic that the commission and the design review committee feel similarly. And with that, we're done for tonight. So again, if the commission and members of the public have any thoughts or items that they want to make sure we capture next month, we're happy to hear them. But otherwise, thank you everyone for coming out again. We very much appreciate the commission's diligence with regard to this project, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
If I may, Mr. Berlinski, can you just clarify for the public? If I understand correctly, the new submission documents from today, they don't include anything new or different with respect to the non-golf course portion of the development, correct?
That is correct. The submission deals entirely with the proposed golf course, the proposed operations for summer of 2024, the layout of the 9 holes, and we're going to utilize the current access. We're not amending in any way, shape, or form what's been submitted to date. And we understand that process has a long way to go. We will be before Design Review Committee on that for a bit, and we look forward to that process as well.
So it's fair to describe the amended submission or the new submission as simply a phasing request?
That's exactly right. And we submitted materials in furtherance of that request. Thank you.
Just have one comment before you go. Just make sure that there's a clear understanding of how the golf course is going to operate this year before any of the built structures are in place, and then what your plan is after the built structures are in place, just so that we can understand on how it's going to temporarily operate for 1 year, and then what the goal is and how it's going to operate going forward.
Sure. So our submission speaks to the proposal for this summer, and it lays out how the golf course is intended to operate in 2024. The submission, the December 2023 submission, for lack of a better term, shows the entirety of the development, including the golf course. So that lays out the design and layout of how the ultimate course is configured relative to the balance of the development. But what we've submitted and what we'll be discussing in detail next month will be how the course is currently going to play and be operated until such time as there's development approved and developed.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess obviously it's a little bit challenged. We can't really discuss aspects of the supplemental amended development. We haven't seen it, so we really can't really discuss it tonight. But I guess the course of action that Amy said, basically, once this is made available to the commission and the public, hearings will be scheduled to hear specifically on the specific aspect, phase 1, and so with the normal course of action, we'll have design review, have a hearing on it first, and then make a recommendation to the full waterfront. How this would work.
Yes, I think we're going to continue the course that we've been on procedurally. It's just now, if I understand correctly, the scope is going to be narrowed in the short term, such that next month the commission will potentially be voting on just the golf course.
That, obviously assuming design review conducts the hearing and makes the decision at that point. The waterfront commission to, any other questions from the commission members or comments? All right, well, I guess this is a little, so it's obviously the phase, so we're talking about a phased approach. So you're introducing the concept of a phased approach where the golf course operation is phase 1. And you mentioned the phase 1A and phase 2 and 3. So the idea that this would have to be, in order to get the golf course operational, even though it's a by right use, you still need design review, planning board, and waterfront commission approval.
And I think also next month would be the appropriate time for the commission to approve the overall phasing plan and approve in a very broad and general sense. Let me say review and potentially approve in a broad and general sense the overall parameters of the development while reserving the right to, as impact studies, peer reviews, and other permits, anything that's needed to complete materials for our review. So we have a complete record as to the non-golf course aspect of the development, the new development. I think the commission could review and give a general approval to the overall concept plan and have a schedule in mind for when specific phases will be ready, subsequent phases of the development will be ready for what I'll call a full and final approval.
I just had one last question before we open it up for public comment. As part of phase one, in terms of just the activity, it's just golf. Are there any new facilities being proposed as part of phase one, or is that one phase 1A?
So again, we're kind of loath to get into the details, but there's the building that is located in the southeast corner of the property that's been spoken about in some circles. That is phase 1A, and it is not relevant and not necessary for the operation of the golf course in the summer of 2024. So, there is a utility connection that needs to be established. Nothing of renown. The current structure that's there for clubhouse usage is going to remain in place. And again, we'll go into detail on all of this next month. But the building that's on everyone's radar, to be candid, is not contemplated to be incorporated into the proposal for the summer's golf operations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from commission members, comments? So we'll open it up for public comment. If people want to comment on what they just heard or any other aspects of the project that we didn't cover at the design review last week. But I guess our next plan would be have to schedule the design review committee to review the documents that were submitted today for the consideration of opening the golf course in phase one. And then the ERC would have to make an advisory opinion to the Waterfront Commission in order for them to make a vote on it.
Bill, I believe that date's been established. Right? Ray, is that official? You're scheduling it, so it's not official yet. That date, the next commission date, it's not solidified
I
yet?
don't know if you.
Has it been advertised? Tentatively May 9th.
May 9th? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay.
sure, if you would like to come up and ask a question, just come on up and introduce yourself.
My name is Richard Ferrera. I was born and brought up in East Providence, and I used to caddy at Metacomet. I'm 86 years old. I go back to 1948, 49, when we started to caddy the whole neighborhood. Never had a problem there. Living there, or crime, or traffic. And however, it was a golf course that was open to, let's say, people who weren't millionaires. East Providence, as you know, had a lot of golf courses, but they were not deed restricted. They were individual restricted. I'm not going to go into names. We all know that. If you don't, you should look into the history of it. The Metacomet was really created by some pretty wealthy contractors, Bain, Cardi, and we caddied there. And along came the carts. And that was the end of the caddies. And it became a much more robust golf course. Unfortunately, it wasn't supported by the members. East Providence needs open space. If you went to New York City and you talk to anybody there and said, the city's going to go bankrupt, let's sell Central Park, what do you think the answer would be? No way, Jose. So there is room for space. There is room for smart development. And I'm not sure that We're on the wrong track with development. I commend Mr. Fields Bazzoli for your work with this commission over the years. The waterfront should have been developed years ago and hasn't been. And now it's being done smartly. So I'm going to reserve any comment on the golf course. It wouldn't be fair. I'd be coming in with pure ignorance. And I will be here next meeting, I hope, to have a minute or so to talk about my conception of the golf course. It's going to be one of the few really open to the public. So just keep that in mind. And also it's deed restricted. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public have a question or comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. I think you all know who I am, but I will announce myself. I'm Candy Seal, speaking on behalf of Keep Metacomet Green. We have submitted 3 position statements to the commission for the record. 2 of these statements were previously submitted to the Planning Board and to the Design Review Committee in response to the Planning Department's recommendation memos. The 3rd was sent to RIDOT in response to the Crossman Engineering traffic study. We ask that these statements be posted to the Commission's website for the public access. We feel that this is appropriate, first, because KMG is arguably the principal, if not the only public group that has written position statements and spoken extensively on Metacomet since the summer of 2020. Secondly, had KMG been invited to the pre-application design workshops as interested members of the public, as the Commission's process calls for, we would have offered many of the same critiques in that setting before final plans were drafted. The 3 position statements cover several process and design issues in detail, with references to pertinent law, rules, and regulations. Briefly, although there are many issues still to be resolved, KMG is focused on these 5. First, a thorough archaeological survey of the Metacomet site must be conducted to determine the extent of evidence of Native American daily living activities and the possible burial sites of the ancient ones there. Artifacts and burials have been uncovered at Jones Pond near Pierce Stadium, along with artifacts found at Kettle Point, suggesting the historic presence of a vast village of indigenous peoples in that area. This process is ongoing now under the auspices of the Rhode Island Historic Preservation and Heritage Commission and the Narragansett Indian Tribe. The survey must be conducted and monitored diligently and respectfully. Anything less would be a disservice to the Native American community. Second, the scenic nature of the Veterans Memorial Parkway must be preserved. Marshall Properties plan to create a roundabout on the parkway at Lyon Avenue with 2 lanes leading to it from both directions for a total of 1,600 feet. This is contrary to protections for the parkway that are embedded purposefully in state law, the city's comprehensive plan, the Waterfront District's 2003 plan, and city zoning ordinances. The tenor of all this protective language is that a developer must build to the traffic capacity of the parkway, not the other way around, to alter the parkway for its own benefit. The next 2 points have to do with the golf course, and we are eagerly anticipating the new plans that should be posted tomorrow. Third, walking pathways must be provided to the public throughout the development, including the golf course, which is deed restricted as a public golf course and public space. The Waterfront District's 2003 plan requires public access to the water, and one of the City Council's conditions for the rezone of Metacomet was that the property owner will integrate paths throughout the development. Naturally, there are safety and liability issues to consider, but numerous articles have documented examples of peaceful coexistence between golfers and walkers. KMG extends an invitation to Marshall Properties to work together to identify a workable solution. Fourth, the golf course maintenance facility at the southeastern corner of the site must be relocated. As it is, the maintenance building and parking lot are planned to be 30 feet from the property line of several residences on Fisher Street and within a street width of half a dozen homes on both sides of Fort Street. The site plans call for tanks at the rear of the facility, presumably for storage of fuel or fertilizer. These are also 30 feet from those Fisher Street backyards. We had originally thought that port tanks indicated propane. We have since recognized that port tanks on the site map might also mean proposed. Whatever will be stored in these tanks, however, the potential danger of a rupture or fumes or a spillage cannot possibly be good for the residents 30 feet away, whose public safety and health is required by good sense in the city's comprehensive plan. I note here as an aside, the developers You Spoke, We're Listening marketing campaign through the surrounding neighborhoods during the summer of 2020. In at least 2 pieces of PR material, Marshall committed to building only residential along Fort and Fisher Streets. One of the pieces includes the sentence, "Marshall Properties keeps its word," and is signed by Leanne Marshall. This commitment to building only residential on Fort and Fisher Streets also appeared in a PowerPoint type presentation, apparently from the same time period. Granted, Marshall withdrew its initial application in September 2020. We trust, however, that Marshall will not also withdraw its commitment to the community and will find a more suitable location for its proposed maintenance facility. KMG suggests a relocation to the area on the other side of the 7th Fairway, which would allow golf course maintenance vehicles to share the emergency access driveway with public safety vehicles. Fifth, the combined grocery store, retail, liquor store, cafe is far too big and must be reduced in size and bulk. At a proposed 98,000 square feet, it is nearly the size of an average big box Walmart store. The Waterfront District's 2003 plan specifically says that big box buildings are prohibited and that new buildings shall not be single-story large masses. We noted at one of the recent meetings that as another condition of rezoning in 2021, the City Council had restricted packaged liquor stores to a retail sales area of 7,500 square feet, and that the developer's plans call for a retail liquor space of 10,000 square feet. The developer's representative later said that everybody knows that a liquor store has 2 components, retail and storage, and that the retail area of this liquor store would be confined to the 7,500 square feet. KMG suggests that the undifferentiated 10,000 square feet shown on the plan be divided into retail and storage areas, with dotted lines perhaps, so that it is abundantly clear that the council's condition for approval is being observed. As interested members of the public, KMG looks forward to working with all parties to help resolve these unresolved issues. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Any other public questions or comments about what we've heard tonight or of the process?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan Bodwin, East Providence. I wanted to commend the Design Review Committee for the meeting the other night. I think we all learned a lot. It was a great meeting. Thank you very much. I just have a couple of process questions. I just want to confirm that a peer review study is being done by the Crossman Traffic Study and the noise study. Is that in the works?
I believe so, Ray. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Another process study, Design Review Committee. I submitted some comments orally and in writing for the record. I'm not going to say them again, but I'm just curious, what happens to them? Are they going to be responded to on a case-by-case basis? Is that part of the process that you'll respond to the ideas that we had?
Anything that the public submits to either the Design Review Commission, the hearing panel, or the Waterfront Commission is distributed to members before any vote occurs, and it's all incorporated as part of the record.
But do they respond individually? Hey, this idea, this is how we're responding? No.
If they want to, they can.
Okay. Well, I hope that you take a look at the ideas and, put it down in writing, what you think about them. And the last thing was, I didn't quite understand, Amy, the conceptual approval. This seems to be new. I don't know how the commission can do that kind of approval without having all the studies in place, that we just spoke about. So I didn't quite understand that idea of conceptual approval.
I haven't reviewed what's been submitted yet, so I don't have anything more to say on that topic.
No, I was talking about, you mentioned at a future meeting,
Yeah.
that maybe you're going to review phase 1 golf course,
Mhm.
that the commission may give conceptual approval
Yep.
to all the phases. I think you spoke about that. And I guess I don't understand how that can happen without having all the studies finished and in place. That's all.
Yeah, I interpreted it that it would be just a conceptual approval of the phasing process, not approving phases, obviously blindly, not giving conceptual, yeah, just conceptually reviewing that the project could be done in phases. Cut your mic off. Sorry. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Tracy McGowan Finkbeiner. I live on Fisher Street in East Providence. And I did see the drawings of this maintenance building that is supposed to go on the corner of Fort and, well, basically just Fort Street and thing, golf course. At 5,000 square feet, that's probably bigger than this building right here, or at least this room. It doesn't belong in that area. It doesn't belong in a residential area. It really should be basically where Metacomet had all of their buildings and stuff, toward the Vets Memorial Parkway, Lion Ave, where there's no residents, to deal with this. And it's like all the noises, like she said, whether it be fuel tanks, propane tanks that are going in there too. It needs to definitely go somewhere else. That's all.
Linda Leet from Riverside. I agree with the man about you wouldn't destroy Central Park. I think of a vision of this city, if that was made into like a Central Park, make Warren Avenue like East Greenwich's Main Street, the waterfront developed, I think it would be gorgeous. That's my comment. But I also wanted to talk about the cross-country skiing. At Goddard Park, we go cross-country skiing in the winter time and stuff. So I don't see why it would be a problem that we could walk and ski when the snow's, deep. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments before we move on? Any other comments from the applicant? Is there any need for a vote tonight, Amy, or this is a special matter?
You could consider asking the planning board to review the new submission and the golf course at their next meeting. My recollection is the planning board in April continued their decision on the advisory opinion 60 days until June. And I think what we heard from the applicant tonight is they're requesting that the commission review at our next meeting just the golf course. So the commission might consider requesting the planning board to provide an advisory opinion prior to your next meeting.
That's the normal course of action anyways, right? I mean, that's typically how it happens. So that's typical. That would be required.
Amy's exactly right. To the extent there's any formality associated with that request, if this commission were so inclined to formally refer it, we will not go back to planning on the improved portions until we have the information that they've requested, whether it be 60 days or longer. So we feel we have the information necessary to make a determination on the golf course. So if to the extent it assists with the process, if the commission would be so inclined.
And the planning board's role is just to provide a consistency with the capital.
Correct.
Use, right?
Yep. Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion that we refer this to the planning board for an advisory opinion?
I'll make that motion.
Discussion, Ray, did you have something to say? Oh, okay, yeah, we're not ready. Ray's ready to get, he's, after his religious experience, Ray can't wait to give his staff report, so we'll wait. We'll take a vote. And all those in favor of making a, referring this to the design, planning board for an advisory opinion, please say aye. Any opposed? All those in favor? Motion approved, so we'll go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this, or do we continue to the next May 16th, 2024? So it's been a long week. So with that said, we'll go ahead and, do I take a vote just to continue the matter to May 16, 2024? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. So Ray, staff report.
Yes, after my sabbatical, I will have a short report. We all know about the DRC meeting that took place that got canceled, and then we had another one that did happen, and we're going to have another one probably on May 9th. And we've discussed, or the applicant has discussed everything that will be discussed between now and then, and the process moves on. There's a second item. It's the Rhode Island Ready permitting process for development that's at Dexter Road. The applicant is requesting that the approval process be taken over by Rhode Island Ready instead of the Waterfront Commission. The Waterfront Commission rules and regulations from the enabling legislation has no provision to permit that. So right now, Amy, as counsel for this commission, and Mike Marcello, who has counsel for the city council, is drafting a piece of documentation that will go to the city council to see if they will allow that. That's for the benefit of the applicant more than for the benefit of the Waterfront Commission. They're, in essence, they want to do what happened at Quonset, where that agency does the permitting process and they still pay us the fee. But we'll see where that goes when the legislation gets submitted.
Ray, that parcel, just so people know, that's the piece of industrial land that where the old Getty terminals were.
That's correct.
becoming
That's correct.
a
Yeah.
Restaurant.
Correct. Yeah, it's not a big deal, but they just want to do that process to expedite the approval process, so they believe. There's another item that is pending right now where Adele Beck, who owns Bear Supply on 70 Pawtucket Avenue, is wishing to move Sky Zone, which is one of her tenants, to a different location so that she can then sell her parcel to the company that owns Bear Supply. They're from Sweden or someplace in Europe. And it's in negotiation right now, so there's nothing really to report on that, except that she has a tentative agreement to buy 105 Pawtucket Avenue so that Sky Zone can move there. When and if that becomes a reality, I'll come back, or we'll come back with some type of a documentation for that. Aspen Aerogels submitted a request to us to install, I should say, a 2,800 square foot aluminum office building on their property to expand their office capacities from the office situation that they have currently in their building. We took the submission, took the plans, sent it through planning, we then sent it through city staff, meaning the engineers, the water board, the police department, the fire department. Nobody has any problems with it, and they all sent a letter back saying that it was okay to do. And they agreed that we could do the approval administratively, which we are doing. Bill and I both signed it, and it's going to be sent back to them. They're just going to put a temporary building there, office space. 15 Ivy Street, which is across the street from this building right here. They have received from us all of the funding for affordable housing that was dedicated to them, $743,000. It was in an escrow account that the Waterfront Commission held. We transferred it to them. We have no more money to give to them. One of the requirements that we asked them to do is to give us a tour of a finished product across the street. And they agreed to do it. Probably it will be May 1st on a weekday morning. And as soon as I have a confirmed date, I have to schedule the mayor. He wants to be at that. And we'll have a walkthrough of one of the units that's across the street that'll be 90% complete, if not fully complete. Just so we can see where the money went. And anybody that's here will be notified, and can attend. I don't know when or where it, when or what time it'll be. It's really up to the mayor's scheduling staff. And that's it I have. That's all I have for staff report.
Thank you. Any questions for Ray on those items? Okay, so with that said, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Amoroso, all those in favor? Okay, motion passes. So we'll see everyone May 9th for the Design Review Committee.